I wasn't supposed to be home that early. The session at the studio got canceled halfway through the afternoon. Some technical issue they couldn't resolve without replacing equipment. Everyone packed up, frustrated, and just like that, my evening opened up. No late-night recording. No overtime. No excuse to come home exhausted and disconnected. For the first time in weeks, I felt light. I decided to surprise Chloe. Nothing big. Just something normal. Pasta. Wine. An actual dinner together, sitting at the table instead of eating separately while scrolling on our phones. I even remember thinking how long it had been since we'd done that without planning it days in advance. At the grocery store, I caught myself smiling like an idiot while choosing the wine. I grabbed the brand she liked, the one she always said reminded her of our first apartment. I remember that thought clearly because it hurts now, how easily I slipped into nostalgia without realizing I was already alone in it. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly the same as always. Lights off, quiet, peaceful, too peaceful. The first thing I noticed when I stepped inside was her coat hanging on the hook by the door. Not tossed over a chair. Not missing. Exactly where she always put it. Her laptop bag was leaned neatly against the wall, zipper half open like she just dropped it there. That told me she should have been home. I called her name, expecting to hear her voice from the bedroom or the bathroom. Nothing answered back. No music. No TV. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my own footsteps. I set the grocery bags down on the counter and that's when I saw her phone. It was plugged in, charging. Screen lit up. I didn't pick it up. I didn't unlock it. I swear that part is true. But the screen was still active and the video preview was right there, frozen in motion like it was waiting for me. A club. Strobe lights. Darkness broken by flashes of color. And Chloe. She was wearing a tight black dress I had never seen before. The kind she used to say was too much or not really me. Her hair was loose, styled differently than usual, and she was smiling. Not the polite, tired smile she'd been giving me lately, but something open, carefree, like she wasn't carrying anything heavy. A man's voice came from off-camera, close enough to sound in asterisk mate. "You're my escape," he said. Then his lips brushed her neck. She laughed. Not awkward. Not uncomfortable. She leaned into it just slightly, like it was natural. My body locked up. I didn't hit play. I didn't swipe. I didn't want to hear more. I didn't want the moment to move forward because somehow, as long as it was frozen, I could pretend there was context I didn't understand. Some explanation that would make it harmless. My hands felt numb as I locked the phone and set it back exactly where it was, aligning it with the edge of the counter like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just watched my entire sense of certainty fracture in silence. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at the dark screen, listening to my heartbeat in my ears. An hour passed. Every minute stretched. I tried to cook but couldn't focus. I poured myself a glass of water and didn't drink it. I checked the door every time a car passed outside. I rehearsed conversations in my head. Casual ones, confrontational ones, quiet ones where I'd pretend I saw nothing. When she finally walked in, she acted like the most normal thing in the world had just happened. "Hey," she said, setting her bag down. She kissed my cheek. Not rushed. Not guilty. Familiar. She smelled like perfume layered over something sharper. Smoke. Maybe. Or cologne. Couldn't tell. She told me she'd been out with friends. Rolled her eyes playfully when I asked if she was hungry. Then she stopped, looked at me and tilted her head. "Are you okay?" she asked. "You look exhausted." I told her the session had been canceled, that I came home early. She nodded, sympathetic, and made a comment about how stressed I'd been lately. When I mentioned the dress, carefully casually, she laughed. Not nervous, amused. "Oh my God, she said. "That's old. I sent that video to a friend weeks ago to get her opinion on the outfit." "You didn't actually think." She shook her head, smiling like I'd told a bad joke. "You're really reading into things lately," she added. "You know that, right?" Somehow, the conversation shifted. My tone, my stress, my work, my imagination. By the time it ended, I was the one apologizing for being tense, for overthinking, for bringing the mood down. She went to bed like nothing was wrong. I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, replaying that frozen frame over and over again, wondering when I'd stopped trusting my own eyes, and when she'd learned how to make me doubt them. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay there until sunrise, staring at the ceiling, replaying tiny moments I'd dismissed for months. Things I'd brushed off as stress, as coincidence, as me being dramatic. One by one, they lined up in my head, no longer isolated, finally forming something whole and ugly. Chloe hadn't always been like this. Or maybe she had, and I just didn't want to see it. She'd started staying out later for work sometime in the spring. First, it made sense. Her company had deadlines, shifting projects, constant Zoom calls. But then the company went fully remote, and the late nights didn't stop. She still came home after 9, sometimes 10. Always tired, always distracted. When I asked how meetings ran so late without an office, she'd shrug and say, "You know how these things drag." I didn't, but I nodded anyway. A few weeks after that, I noticed a new bank card in her wallet while she was in the shower. Different color, different logo, not tied to any account I recognized. When I asked, she waved it off like it was nothing. "Work reimbursement card," she said. "I told you about that." She hadn't. At dinner, her phone started living face down on the table. Always within reach. Always buzzing. And every time it did, she'd react too fast. Grabbing it, flipping it, checking the screen with attention that felt rehearsed. Not surprised. Anticipatory. There were smells too. Subtle at first. When she came home, her hair sometimes carried smoke. Not cigarette smoke exactly. Something sweeter, mixed with cologne. Men's cologne. I noticed because no one at her job smoked. She'd complained about it enough times. When I asked, she laughed. "You're imagining things again. That word again." Once, late at night, I passed the bathroom and heard her whispering. Low, controlled. I caught just one sentence through the door. "Everything's under control." I remember standing there, frozen, wondering who she was talking to. When I asked the next day, she said it was a friend having a meltdown. I apologized for prying. Physical distance came next. Small excuses stacked on top of each other. Headaches, stress, being touched out. She started sleeping closer to the edge of the bed. Eventually, she said she needed some space. Not emotional space. Physical. "I just need my body to be mine for a bit," she said, like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. I agreed, because disagreeing always turned into something else. By dawn, I was sitting on the couch, staring at the wall, realizing none of this felt new anymore. Felt overdue. And that scared me more than the video ever could. I told myself I wouldn't look, that I didn't need to, that whatever I thought I saw on her phone could still be explained away if I just left it alone. I repeated that lie to myself for 2 days straight, walking around the house like a guest in my own life, nodding at Chloe, answering questions automatically, pretending my head wasn't screaming. On the third night, she fell asleep on the couch with the TV still on. Her breathing was slow, even, comfortable, like nothing in the world was wrong. That was when I noticed the tablet. The one she used for Zoom calls. The one we'd synced months ago so we could share calendars and files. My account was still connected. I knew that because I'd never bothered to log out. Why would I have? I picked it up with hands that didn't feel like mine and took it into the kitchen. I didn't rush. I didn't sneak. I moved slowly, deliberately, like if I stayed calm, the truth might be gentler. It wasn't. Her cloud storage opened without asking for a password. At first, everything looked normal: work folders, receipts, random screensh *ts. Then I saw one folder tucked between system files, named with a string of numbers that meant nothing. Inside it was a single video, timestamped the night before. I stared at the file name for a full minute before pressing play. The screen exploded with noise and light. A nightclub, bass vibrating through cheap speakers. The camera shook, then steadied. There was Chloe, sitting on a man's lap. Not dancing, not passing by. sitting, comfortable, familiar. His arm wrapped around her waist like it belonged there. They were both drinking from the same glass, laughing into each other's space. Someone in the background shouted, "You're finally free." Chloe leaned into the camera and smiled. Not embarrassed, not cautious. "I don't regret it," she said clearly. "This is our escape." Then she turned the camera on herself, her face filling the screen, eyes bright, voice low. "Let him think I'm with the girls. I don't remember sitting down, but I must have." The room felt hollow, like sound had been *ket out of it. I watched the video twice more, not because I wanted to, but because some part of me needed to make sure my brain wasn't filling in gaps. It wasn't. This wasn't flirting. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't confusion. It was a double life. Every late night, every lie, every time she made me feel unstable for asking questions, it all snapped into place with brutal clarity. The mosaic I'd been circling finally completed itself, and there was no way to unsee it. I locked the tablet and set it down gently, like it might shatter if I wasn't careful. In the living room, Chloe shifted in her sleep. I didn't wake her. I just stood there, realizing I hadn't only lost trust. I'd lost my sense of reality, and she'd been counting on that. The next morning, Chloe woke up like nothing had happened. She stretched, complained about her neck, asked if I wanted coffee. She moved through the kitchen with the same routines she'd perfected over years, humming softly, scrolling her phone, existing in a reality where I apparently knew nothing. I watched her carefully now, every word, every pause. When she left for work, she kissed my cheek and told me she'd be late again. I nodded and waited until her car disappeared down the street before I moved. I didn't rage. I didn't panic. Something colder had settled in. I started with her laptop. She'd always been careless with passwords. Said trust mattered more. I logged in easily and opened her documents. First, it was boring. Work files, notes, random drafts. Then I saw it. A lease agreement, draft status, an apartment across town. 1 bedroom, 6-month term, signed under her maiden name. My hands went cold. Next to it sat a folder labeled legal. Inside were emails, carefully written, polished, calculated. She referred to someone named Logan as her lawyer. But the language felt off. Phrases jumped out at me. "If he raises his voice, that's your record. Make sure the audio is clear. Timing matters. We need consistency." Audio. I searched her files again and found a separate folder. Dozens of recordings, short clips, arguments we'd had trimmed, edited, stripped of context. Me sounding tired, frustrated, human. I checked our bank statements. Nearly $10,000 withdrawn in small increments. Not enough to flag. Enough to disappear. The dates lined up perfectly with nights she said she was with friends. This wasn't just an affair. It was a strategy. She wasn't planning to leave quietly. She was building a narrative. Turning moments into *p***ns. Rewriting history before I even knew the story existed. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, realizing the woman I loved wasn't just leaving me. She was preparing to destroy me and walk away clean. I didn't confront her right away. That surprised me more than anything else. I always thought betrayal would make me explode. Shouting, accusations, something dramatic. Instead, I felt detached, focused, like my emotions had stepped aside and handed the wheel to something quieter and sharper. I printed everything. The lease, the emails, the bank statements, the audio files. I made copies and backups, flash drive, cloud storage under a new account, even emailed a compressed archive to myself from a burner address. I wasn't being paranoid anymore. I was being careful. Chloe came home that evening exactly on schedule. Late, predictably irritated. She noticed the tension immediately. "You're awfully quiet," she said, dropping her bag. "Did something happen?" I shrugged. Missed bill notification came through. Might have just been a system error. That was enough. Her shoulders stiffened. Her tone changed. "You always jump to conclusions," she said. You get worked up over nothing, and then I have to deal with your mood. There it was. The setup. I watched her carefully now. The way she positioned herself, the subtle distance, the phone angled just right on the counter. I realized she wasn't reacting emotionally anymore. She was performing. You're being aggressive, she added lightly, like she was testing the word. I didn't respond. I walked to the table, reached into my pocket, and placed the flash drive between us. She stared at it. What's that? She asked. Everything, I said. Her face drained of color as I listed it calmly. The apartment, the withdrawals, the recordings, the video, the lawyer who wasn't actually licensed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I didn't insult. I just stopped playing my role. For the first time since I'd known her, Chloe had nothing to say. No denial, no tears, no anger, just silence. She stared at the drive like it was a loaded P***N. Calculating. Rewriting. But the script was gone now. She knew it. I knew it. This won't be settled here, I said finally. It'll be settled through attorneys. She turned and walked away without a word. No slammed doors. No goodbye. Just the quiet collapse of control she thought she'd never lose. That night I didn't sleep. I organized. Folders. Dates. Labels. Audio *TS. Financial trails. I stripped the story of emotion and left only intent. While digging deeper, I found another name, Tyler. Their messages were clinical, almost surgical. They talked about timing arguments, provoking reactions, recording my voice when I sounded unstable. There was even a document titled backup_evidence, updated a week ago. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a breakup or a divorce strategy. It was a hunt. I forwarded everything to my brother's law firm and a friend in internal compliance. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt precise. Whatever came next, I was ready. I filed first. Quietly. Legally. Chloe was summoned. Her lawyer, Logan, turned out to be unlicensed and under investigation. The story she'd tried to build collapsed before it ever reached daylight. I sold the house. Deleted old accounts. Changed my number. Moved states. Started over. 6 months later, I met Sarah. No drama. No tests. She listened without trying to fix me. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to defend my reality. Chloe once said the club made her feel free. Ironically, it was her fake freedom that gave me the real one.